Well, hello there and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. I'm your host, Jesse Showalter, and we are almost done with this challenge. It is Thursday. We got today and tomorrow, and we got people jumping in the chat right now, joining us on the challenge. If you're watching on YouTube, come on over to Behance, follow the link down in the description. Join us here because Joshua Davis is in the chat. Aaron Hunter is in the chat. We got Sam Peterson moderating, getting ready for that weekend vibe, and we're about to have a little bit of fun with this XD Daily Creative Challenge. If you're new to Adobe XD, this is a great place for you. If you are great at XD, this is a fantastic place for you also because it'll just encourage you and challenge you to grow your skill set. Let's move over to my desktop so we can see what's happening as more people like Jay Swanson and Tia Reed are jumping in the chat. Hello to Juan, Jose Salazar Gil, hello there in the chat as well, and Spence Garcia, Lawrence Deneva back in the chat. Great submissions by some of these folks that are in the chat too, so really appreciate you guys following along and joining us in the process. Well, this is the Daily Creative Challenge. You can find it at behance.net/challenge/XD. Hit that blue button to start, scroll down to see the challenges that unlock. And today we are on the 8th challenge. We're going to be making some sliders, prototyping some expandable options, maybe a filtering kind of thing for an e-commerce application. And you're going to receive those challenges each day. You can join the community chat, not just the live chat, but there's going to be a link somewhere up top or posted by Sam Peterson to join the Adobe XD Discord community with over 36,000 creatives. And this is where I'm going to be reviewing some work from yesterday's challenges. You're going to follow along with the daily show and post your stuff up to Behance. Make sure you use the hashtag XD Daily Challenge. Let's jump over to Adobe XD and see what we got for challenge number 8. We are going to, like I said, prototype a set of expandable options for e-commerce experiences. And let's try to incorporate some adjustable sliders for options like price and duration and distance. I don't know, something like that. And we have an initial artboard that's created here. It may or may not be the same. I think I wasn't allowed to add this image in your starting file. So you might have a blank artboard, but really just find any image of a couch or any sort of product you want. And I just put some generic kind of like information here with some polygons for stars, some generic kind of lingo, and a nice big add to cart button. And I'm thinking what we're going to do is hit our navigation element and slide out a kind of like a vertical navigation. And from that vertical navigation, we want to be able to do all of our different options and filtering. So, okay, Jay Swanson says, will there be more challenges next week? I don't think there's going to be another XD Daily Creative Challenge. I think next week is the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge, which if you're not a huge fan of Illustrator or you don't use it a lot, you should start there because Illustrator is a dope tool and it integrates really, really nicely with XD. So it's nice to just build out that skill set. All right. So sorry, I hit my microphone. Joshua says it's sad that we're about to finish. I know we're getting close, but don't worry. I may or may not be back, as well as some of the other amazing creators and designers that come on this channel. So stay tuned. Always stay tuned for more good stuff. Speaking of staying tuned, let's look at the schedule really quick. Wow, that was a sweet segue. I think this is the correct schedule. I could be wrong, but I think right before me was 3D and AR design with Jay Master. And then we have some drawing along with Kyle T. Webster and a design off with Voodoo Val before we end the day. So let's jump into here. I think it would probably, like, contextually for like a UX flow or a user flow, it would make more sense if we were looking at a list of items, right? And then we were filtering down that list of items. Keep that in mind. We have this product screen we're looking at, but the filters could always be there. So I tell you what, let's do this. Let's create another artboard. I'm going to hit A for artboard, and over here I'm going to look at my mobile devices, and I'm going to hit that iPhone 11 Pro, and that's going to be the start of my artboard. We're going to turn this into our overlay. So let me just type overlay right there, and I'm thinking this is going to take up kind of like 3/4 of our screen, something like that. And the reason I like to do that is because I'm going to go ahead and drop a rectangle here onto my overlay. I like to just fill the whole thing out. Let's go black and just bring the opacity of it down to like 75. Let's hook up our Oh, you know what, actually? I've changed my mind. I have changed my mind. Let's do this. Width of 375, let's bring it back to 375. So 375. And let's go overlay there. And then let's do a white box here, okay? So that way we kind of get a nice overlay thing. Let's link this thing up in prototype mode. I'm gonna grab my little hamburger menu navigation. I'm gonna prototype it over, and on tap, I want to overlay. And the reason I like to make it the entire size of the artboard is because look, see how the green bounding box of my overlay is there? I mean, I could move it around, but why? It's exactly where I need it to be. If you make a smaller one, you can then dictate where you want that to be. That's a thing you can do too. And then that should be pretty good. So with an overlay, you get this automatic transition back if you click somewhere. So let's press play really quick on our prototype and hit that guy right there. And it goes in. It slides right in, and we can click and it goes away. Something as easy as that. Now, let's go back to our prototype real quick and check out that trigger. Do we want it to dissolve in? We could, or we could have it slide left. That could be a thing we do also. So now we slide it in, but it looks a little bit funky, doesn't it, with that background. So let's go back to our dissolve. I think that worked just fine. And let's bring it up to a 0.4 transition. I think that looks good. Okay. Let's see. Aaron Hunter says that initial artboard looks snazzy. Thank you, Aaron Hunter. Also, I like to make the overlays the same size as the full artboard so they place everything more easily. I do too. Personal preference. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. If you like to make them a bit smaller and then place them somewhere in the artboard, that's great. This is also really, really good for maybe like overlays, not overlays, excuse me, but like hover, like kind of indicators, or maybe even like an onboarding that has kind of educational components there so they can click over like a pulsing area and see something pop up. That'd be a good thing to do there as well. I'm gonna bring in our prototype. I think it's a little bit dark in the background. So with that being said, I'm gonna bring that dark background down just a little bit, maybe more down to like 30. Let's play it now. Boom, something like that, and play. Let's see what we get. Yeah, I think that's a little bit nicer. We don't need it to be as heavy, do we? Yeah, I don't think so. So now what we want to do is, let's call this overlay, that dark background thing, and lock that. We don't need to play with that. Let's call this menu. And then on top of our menu, we want to build a set of expandable components that would allow for filtering options inside of them. That could be really easy. Let's press Command or Control C and V to copy and paste, and let's call this our bar, and we're gonna bring it up just like so. I know you can't really see it, so I'm just gonna turn it a really ugly color so you can see it while we're working on it. We don't want it to actually be this big, absolutely not. But we do want to have, I'm gonna put a little shadow at the bottom. I'm gonna turn it back to white and not do the actual shadow, but I'm gonna use that as a line. So I'm gonna go 0.5 on the y-axis, see that? And it's gonna create a nice crisp line there for me. I think that's a nice trick to use instead of having to draw lines and do that whole thing. This is just how I like to do it. Once we're there, I feel like we should have some sort of indicator, right? So I think we probably, I like a chevron. I think a chevron's pretty simple, but a chevron could sometimes mean lead out. So how about we just do a plus, like we're gonna add a filter set to it. With that being said, I'm going to take my rectangle and just draw a little rectangle here. I'm going to fill it with maybe like a nice kind of poppy color, like blue like that. And then let's just, let's zoom in really quick, grab our shape. Why don't we just make this like a rounded plus button? And that's a little intense. It's a little big, a little wide, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and press Command C, Command V, make another one, or Control, whether you're on PC or an Apple computer. Either one is fantastic. I actually use both, in case you were wondering, for my design work. I use both. So actually really like the new version of Windows. It's pretty slick, and Adobe XD on it is not too shabby, I'll tell you what. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I have my little plus button right there. I might keep this blue color, I might not, but let's add a nice title. So let's take our same typography we have from the rest of our design. Let's add it in, and it does not have to be so massive, but let's put something like price right here, okay? Now here's what I'd like to do. I would like to create the extended version of this first. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command or Control K and make a component out of my cross. I might not actually like it that color. Let's just chill it out and make it like a neutral gray, something like that. And this text is still way too big in my opinion. And when I say way too big, sometimes people ask me, well, how do you know it's way too big? Well, number one, visually, it's just gonna look, it looks super ridiculous, just in my opinion. But number two, I also have to plan future forward for different types of content they're gonna go in here. So maybe I have a really long word here. It's not a short word like price, but it's something else like location, or maybe a combination of words. I need to make sure that I have ample space for that to scale and stretch. So that's my thing. Okay. With an expandable box, we're going to want to do the expanded version first so that we have all the components and everything inside of it. And this is a good way to think just in general. When you're working with like different states of elements, you should start out with the state that has the most content and then work backwards and figure out where they go, where they disappear to in previous states. So let's do price, and then let's do a slider. I think we should definitely do a slider for this first one. So let's go $0 for a slider, and then let's go over here something like, oof, man, I'll tell you what, let's just right align this and left align that. What's our maximum amount of money we want to spend on furniture? $10,000? Yikes, that's a lot of money. Okay, now with that being said, this text is way too big because we want to have a decent amount of control on our slider. Did you notice that? Because I had this text left aligned and this text right aligned, when I resized them, they stayed aligned to the edges on the left and right hand side that I wanted them to. Just a nice little trick. You know, we could also shorten this by putting 10K. That could be kind of our max there. And then with that being said, we know that our expandable area does not have to be so massive. I think our slider should be right about there. And then why don't we really quickly just build out our slider. So I'm going to do a rectangle, and let's take the border off. And what color do we use here for this? I liked that neutral gray. Let's just save it. And let's turn the start of this thing to our neutral gray, and let's round the edges because our cross was, or our plus was rounded. I think that would be a good thing to do. Now, a few things you need on a slider. You need the background kind of fill. You need another one on top of it. So I just Command C, Command V'd, and I'll tell you what, let's stick with this kind of muted mauve pink color. Dig in that, okay? With our filled color, we want to use that mauve color like that, and let's zoom in and bring it back like this to the halfway point. Okay, and then let's do a nice control kind of bar on top of it. Should we do rounded one? Should we do a square one? Let's go with a rounded one. I'm going to draw an ellipse over it. It actually almost looks right. So I'm just going to hit maybe we outline it with the mauve. Yes, easy. And then a real simple thing you can do is just add a little bit of background shadow. Very chill though, like not super intense. Okay, so I'm going to hit the blur and bring my shadow down below 10%, probably something like 7%. If we want to get crazy, we could make it the pink color and make that kind of fun. And I think this is a little too dark actually, so let's neutralize it even a little bit more. That looks much nicer. Okay, now we have a little slider. All right, so let's call this back B bar. Let's call this F bar, front bar, and let's just call this one the handle. Okay, what we can do is let's just set the positioning for this guy. Let's go down a little bit here. Okay, and I think we're also, yep, let's just do that. Let's grab all of those and let's group them together and call it slider. Let's go back, group it together, call it a slider, and then Command or Control K, make a component out of it. Okay, and with that, we want to be able to slide this thing up and down. Okay, we're going to figure out how to do that in a second, but first, I think you probably need the current price that it represents here, don't we? We probably do. So let's do something like in between 0 and 5,000 or 10,000 is $5,000. So let's do something like that. Make it a little bit easier or a little bit more bold. And I'll tell you what, I really like this really light neutral color. Let's see what the costs look like over here. That's a little too neutral, so let's just pump that up a little bit, kind of halfway in between. We want to keep the good contrast, but we want to be able to see it, but we don't want it to dominate. Okay. All right. So now we have all of our elements. Here's our cost, and here's our slider, and here's our kind of bottom and top prices. Let's make sure that these elements are lined up. They look a little wonky. Just visually, they look really wonky for some reason. That's okay. So we have our bar and we have our different components and everything inside of it. Why don't we grab all of those and let's group them together. Let's call this a tab or something like that. And let's make a component out of it. We have the default state, which would be the expanded state. Let's make the compressed state or the smaller state. So here's the new state, and this is unexpanded. Can somebody help my brain fart out? What's the right word for unexpanded? Compressed? Oh man, I'm having a brain fart today. Let's do that. Okay, so what we're gonna do is in the unexpanded state, okay, we're going to take all of our elements, do really simple like this, and move those up, move that up. Here's our slider and all of our stuff, and let's just bring the opacity down. And now we're gonna bring up the size of our thing like that. Okay, pretty easy stuff. All right, so again, you have the expanded and the unexpanded state. Let's make it very, very tiny so clients won't see the price. Ooh, somebody's playing devil's advocate. I like it. We'll fix it later. This is more about the interaction. Calm down on a Thursday, folks. I love it. I love live streaming. I love people's feedback. Let's make it bigger. Let's go bigger. I don't want to try to be doing any dark patterns here. That's not the point, folks. Okay, so this is now 26. We want to make sure it's the same. Yeah, down there. Okay. All right, with that being said, we want to, let's prototype this thing, okay? So we're gonna keep it kind of set to our unexpanded state. Head over to prototype, and we're going to click, and on click, we don't want to overlay, we want to auto animate to, oh no, sorry, I did something wrong. Let me go back. Aha. We want to go here. First, before we get in there, let's put our invisible tap trigger, shall we? So this is going to be our tappable area. This is just a way to do it. Tap trigger, let's bring it inside our thing, and that should be recursive. So now we should see it in the other spaces as well, okay? It should be in both tap and tap. We just need the one tap, I think. It's in both now. Okay, good stuff. So in our unexpanded view, we are going to go to prototype, and we're going to click here on this tap trigger, and we are going to auto animate to the default state. Let's go over to the default state, hit our tap trigger. Whoa, hit our tap trigger, and let's auto animate back to our unexpanded state. Sound good? Unexpanded. Here we go. We should be able to open it up like that. And we're getting some weird kind of stuff happening with our size there. So let's go back and fix that and see what our deal is, okay? Our price is like not staying aligned where it should be. Let's make sure it's lined up there. It's at 180 and 43. Let's go back to our default state here. 180, and it expands down. Okay, that should look a little bit better. Let's go back to our unexpanded state, and we should be able to go, there we go. And here's the only problem I'm having. At that distance, the size of our prototype, we're not seeing our shadow here at all very much. So let's just bring it up to 1 pixel and make it really, really clear. And hopefully we should be able to see it now like that, and expand it just like so. Let's make sure that that's the same for both 1 pixel. When you do half pixels, you get funky things sometimes. So let's actually really liked looking at those things together. So let's go to our prototype and set our home there so it always starts there. We should be able to open up our side navigation, and then we should be able to, whoa, open up our side navigation, hit our plus, expand it, and compress it, just like that. Okay, so we can make a couple of these. I mean, really quickly. Do we have time today? Holy cow, how am I already running out of time? I had such plans, folks. All right, we can like duplicate these just like that. And we can make this one say, let's see, size, and we could change some things about that one. We could duplicate another one. We could have this say color, and then when we look at our prototype again, we can drag it out. We see multiple of these just like that, but they're hiding. So what we'd have to do, let's do this. Actually, you know what? This is actually the real interesting stuff. The sliders are cool. We could get to that, but how do you make these things actually expand all together? I'm going to grab all of them, okay? And I'm going to Command or Control K and do a nested component with new component states so that they all expand. An accordion, that's the word that I've been looking for. And Spence said collapsed. Collapsed, expanded, accordion. Hello, Thursday. Let's get it together here. All right. So we have our default state, right? Our component state there. And then we want to add a new state, okay? So we would want to add a new state like so and say expand one. And what we're going to do with that one is expand it and take everything else and drag it down into place like so. Now you got to drag it just a little bit further so that our line shows up, don't we? Yeah, cool. So we have default state, expand one. Let's go from expand one. We'll make expand two, something like that. Okay. That means we're going to take if you would click on plus. Now we have different things. Accordions, sometimes when you open one, all the others close. Sometimes you can open them and just have them all open. Let's do that kind where you can open any one you want, okay? So let's expand that one and go like that. Very cool. And then let's make one more. Let's call it expand 3. And you guessed it, folks, we're gonna come down here to our component inside of there and expand that one. Okay, so now we have all the different spots like so. Now we got to come in and prototype this bad boy, don't we? So why don't we do this? We're inside. Oh, you know what? And this component's going to get a little tricky. I'm going to have to add some tap points, not inside of each one of these bars, but invisible tap points above. Okay, so before I go any further, why don't we just draw a rectangle inside? Boop, like that. Make it invisible. Let's call this one tap 1. Okay, I'm gonna get it out of there. I'm gonna put it inside of here. Let's duplicate this and call this one, you guessed it, tap 2. And then one more like that, and let's call it tap 3. All right, we're running out of time, but let's make this thing work before we end, because I want to make it work. So with the default state selected, I'm gonna select here, click auto animate to expand 1. All right, boom. We go to expand 1, and on expand 1, we could close it. Aha, auto animate to the default state, or we could auto animate to this one to expand 2. Okay, let's just look at it like that and see what happens. So we have it set up like so. We can expand 1 and they all move together, which is nice. We would have to fix the rest of these states for sure, but I think that's all we have time to do today. Can I point out a fun new feature that XD is doing? Now that I've created a prototype between these two boards, I've created a flow. This is one of the things that came out in the last update. As soon as I did that, I got a little tag on the top left corner of the home of my prototype, and I can rename this filter menu, and I can drag it the entire flow around by the tag. And when I go to share, I could actually select the different flows, and if I had multiple flows, I can just create a link for this flow, which is pretty cool. But let's look at our flow one more time before we go. Let's hit our hamburger menu, and we see our little menu pops out. Should be able to expand one, expand the second one. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what you could do. I want to see more out of you guys when you submit your work. With that being said, let's head over to Discord. We have time for about 1 or 2 check out of some portfolio work. This one's by Chernaski inside of the Discord, and this is, he says something like this, maybe. Ooh, a little hover for, these are animated icons. Oh, come on, with this beautiful mega menu, really modern, nice layout, really editorial, really slick. I like that one. Very nice work, Chernesky. Got time for 1 or 2 more. This is from Laura Staniva. Let's look at her prototype. This is from yesterday's filtering process. I like the idea of them filtering out and coming in. I was working with the same cards yesterday and swapping, but this is also a really, really cool implementation where each of these different groups had their own set of cards and they just came out. That's really modern. That's really slick. Why didn't I think of that? Laura, because I want to be like you when I grow up. That's why. And want time for one more. This is Anna Filters Traveling. Beautiful. Just a straight swap. And I'm sorry, was there a timed animation going on at the same time? Oh, that's slick and sweet. I like it. Beautiful work. Hey, make sure you submit your work for myself and the other amazing mentors that are inside the Discord. We'd love to take a look at your work. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. We'll see you tomorrow for the final challenge of this series. Talk to you tomorrow.